Hello, everyone. The 10 of you joining right on time. We're going to give it a few minutes for others to join in. We have about 50 or 60 people we're expecting today. So that's great. How's everyone's week been? Get a couple thumbs up. As you remember as well, super informal network. Feel free to take yourself off mute and chat amongst yourself also. We would love to hear from you.
Looks like you got a lot of people popping in.
And Christopher, I'm happy to admit people for you if you want to, while you're doing your slides.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. Kathy, good to see you. Laura, Julie, perfect. Tina, how are you doing today?
Hi, everybody. Nice to see you.
In true OD fashion, if you are able to turn your camera on and be visually present with us, feel free. You do not have to. I know a lot of people at the 12:30 are eating and maybe shy, so no pressure, but it would be great to see your face as well. Christopher Law, good to see you. Jordan, perfect. So we're just giving it a few minutes for a handful of people to join, and we'll jump right in. Okay, so as people are joining, let's get started because we do have a very interactive, very exciting presentation happening today. And let me just share my screen. Okay, so welcome everyone to the Ontario Healthcare OD Network tri-annual event. This is actually our 10th event, I realized last night, marking about 3 years of the network, pulling everyone together. It's just a really exciting time for the network also, which we'll mention a little bit more at the end. We are joined by a very impressive and very exciting special guest today. And I hope you'll all enjoy the session. Before we jump into the main content, though, I do want to give our land acknowledgement. So we would like to acknowledge the Indigenous peoples of all of the lands that all of us are on today. So while we are meeting virtually, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of these lands, which we each call home. So we do this as a network to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improving our own understanding of local Indigenous peoples and their cultures. So as the OHODN, we hope to model inclusive behaviors and actually be active allies for all individuals, all Indigenous peoples. Our organizations are made up of and serve many Indigenous people, which emphasize the importance of building healthy relationships and trust. So University Health Network, where I belong, where I am situated, is on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, Chippewa, and Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations and Inuit and Métis people. So as a reminder, and as you know, we are managed as a network from a group of coordinating committee members. There's been a few changes here, but you can see all their names up on the slide. If you're paying attention and you stick around at the end, you'll notice we have a new member, Kathy, joining us for a potential coaching subcommittee, which will be really exciting to explore and talk about a little bit later on. Another reminder, as you think about other people in your network that may not be part of this network, feel free to introduce us, but we can get them plugged in. Or if you want to join the coordinating committee, feel free to jump on as well. So today, after our welcome, we're going to spend the majority of the time with Patty on the art of alignment, a practical guide to inclusive leadership. But we do have some announcements at the end, though, so please stick around for that also. So, Patty. Patty is the CEO of LeadershipSmarts. She is the author of the best-selling book, The Art of Alignment, A Practical Approach to Inclusive Leadership. Met Patty fairly recently, but I've seen her name pop up quite a lot in the alum group for the MSOD program at Pepperdine, so the Masters of Science in Organization Development, of which she is an alum. She is also a Master's Certified ICF Coach. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Patty, for the main presentation today.
All right. Thank you so much, Christopher, for setting this up and for inviting me to be here with your great network. And I just want to say, thanks to you that we have networks like this. I'm a part of the MSOD alumni network, and I think it helps so much to gather as OD consultants, because what we do is really not for sissies. It can be kind of hard. I have been working in the field of organizational development since the 90s. I kind of hate to date myself, but now that I've let my hair go gray, I think the cat's out of the bag that I'm in my senior years doing this work. And I want to say that before I started my field, before I went into organizational development, got my degree in Pepperdine, which I graduated in 2000, I was a geoscientist working in the energy field. And at the time, I was one woman working with a lot of guys most all the time. And I was working for a large integrated oil and gas company, BP, and I found it to be really daunting. There were a lot of times when we were coming together and we're having conversations about important things like whether to drill wells or not drill wells. And I was a tree hugger in Houston, which made it kind of me an outlier in that sense, working in oil and gas and geology. I found it kind of difficult to bring my voice in the room. I would find myself censoring myself, even though no one had told me, that I should say something or not say something. It was always really difficult to know when to talk, whether I was saying the right thing, was my idea welcome. And I see some heads nodding here, right? That we see this for ourselves. And we also, as organizational development consultants, we see it for a lot of the people that we work with, that there are so many smart people in a room, oftentimes, that are not included. And sometimes it's because of our demographic. We're the youngest person, we're the only woman, we're the minority person of color. It can be for those reasons. It can be just because we're not high enough in the hierarchy to be, heard, etc. So there's a lot of just brain trust in the room. And you all work in healthcare. This can actually be a matter of life and death. When you have doctors in a room, patients that they're being served, it's important to get our act together. And every piece of that equation matters. As an example, I work a lot with the Children's Hospital of Colorado here. I really love working with them. You go in there and you see these amazing photographs of like preemie babies, where I remember one where the preemie baby has like a ring on the finger, where somebody had taken their wedding ring and put it on the hand, on like the hand of the wrist or something. It's just this tiny little thing, and you just think, wow, we've got these people's lives in our hands. So I just wanted to sort of bring that energy in the room, that spirit in the room of how can we as organizational developments help these systems become more inclusive so that we can talk about those important things in a way that is healthy, that allows our voices to be heard, that acknowledges, marginalized voices and can bring those in the room, et cetera. And that's really what my work's about. So with that, I'm going to just back up for a second and kind of get us really down to square one. So this talk is on alignment for organizational development. Hold on a second. No, that screen's in a weird place here. And so I always like to be very specific with language to make sure we're all talking about the same thing. And it may seem pretty silly to say, okay, we're a group of OD consultants, but I'm going to actually go through like, well, the definition of organizational development. And this is partially because sometimes I think we forget, what is it we really do? Half the time I have people ask me, or I say I'm an organizational development consultant, and I actually had one person call me and say that their CEO needed somebody to help them organize their drawers in the back of their office. Could I do that? Right. And I said, well, I don't really do that. Here's what I do. She goes, oh, well, he needs that too. And I ended up getting hired for that. That was back in the phone book days. That was a long time ago. But I have this definition of organizational development. You can, Wikipedia or do whatever. But since Chris Worley was one of my teachers, I always like to use his definition. So this comes from Cummings and Worley. And he says, what is organizational development? Well, organizational development is a science-based process that helps organizations build their capacity to change and achieve greater effectiveness by developing, improving, and reinforcing strategies, structures, and processes. So what I would like to say is that with all of that language, I really see organizational development as really all about alignment. How do we get, once we're in an organization and we're trying to achieve something together, we need to get a lot of people understanding what it is we're trying to achieve, how we're going to do it through a process, what is the structure we're going to use, and how do we make that more and more efficient and keep it alive and change it as we go. So it's just a constant process of alignment and realignment over and over and over again. And one of the things that I know is that, when I was working in geology and I decided I wanted to change my career, I knew that I did not have the know-how to get people to come to agreement on things. They had their process, but generally speaking, you weren't allowed to talk. And when I was there, it was so bad that one time I was invited to bring like maps and stuff like that. They were having a senior session and all these seniors were sitting in the boardroom, and that I was out in the hall where they could call me if they needed me. So then they called me in, and I came and I sat down, and I actually sat down in the only available chair. Everybody stood up, and I was like, what'd I do? It turned out that somebody leaned over and said, you are sitting in Mr. Waller's chair. Mr. Waller being the head of the business unit. And he'd gone to the executive washroom, which I didn't know. So I wasn't supposed to sit down at all. I was supposed to stand up and pass everything around, et cetera. But anyway, fortunately, we're a long ways from that. We've really moved towards a more inclusive culture since I started back in the 90s, but it's still not there yet. So I went off to grad school. Like I said, I graduated in 2000, and I was just so excited to find all these modalities that would help us to bring people in a room, have these conversations, and talk about things that really mattered. And so I learned, this sociotech, appreciative inquiry, open space technology, leadership circle, stuff, all kinds of things. And I was super excited to do it. I was totally I was a total geek about it. Chris had, in the back of my office, there's these books, but believe me, there were plenty of books that went into this process so I could learn about this. And I would bring my bag of tools to people, but I often found that it would kind of be a flash in the pan. I would bring it, they do it, they get all excited about it. And then you would come back a month or two later and not much had really changed. I don't know if anybody else has had this experience, but it was pretty common. That was if I could actually get them to spend the time. If we're going to do an open space session, we'd bring everybody together and we would figure out, okay, we're going to spend, if we could get a day, that was like a miracle. If we could get 2 days, it was a super miracle. But it took a lot of convincing just to get the people in the room to even get started. So I know all of us have our favorite models, and I want you to say, I totally believe in all these models. Liberating structure is one of my new favorite passions. And so I'd just be kind of curious here if people might put in the chat, what are some of the things they love that they're using a lot of, that they feel like are really useful, your go-to toolkit to get people to improve their structures and their processes and their dynamics of how they work together to talk about things. So if y'all could just pepper some of those things in the chat, I can take a look at what some of people are loving. Triz, is that something? I'm not sure what that is. Are we waiting everyone? I don't see anything coming in. Oh. Plan, measure, engage. Cotter, yeah, John Cotter, awesome. Appreciative inquiry. I'm going to be doing appreciative inquiry very soon here with a large group, manufacturing. They're just a million things. Bridges, yes, transitions work. All this stuff is really great. So I want you to know that what I am going to be teaching you is not a substitute for any of this. It's a complementary skill set we can add to it. So if we're working with William Bridges around transitions, well, what's just even saying, okay, here's these transitions, here's these stages we're in, which stage are we in? Getting people to agree on which stage we're in and getting them to deliberate it so they feel safe, the psychological safety to deliberate it, is an alignment exercise. Or let's say we're doing, planning of any kind, that's always an alignment exercise. We're making a plan, but are people really bought into the plan? Oftentimes we have plans, we talk about it, we present them, we throw them over through email, we have road shows, but are people really behind the plan or not? Are they feeling safe to say, yes, this is a plan I'm involved in. I want to be behind it, or I'm not. And have we even had that deliberation to a degree that we can ascertain that? Or do we just find out a year later, like, nothing went according to plan? I wonder what happened, that kind of thing. So what we really need is alignment. What is alignment? Alignment occurs when all parts of the system are unified in their pursuit of reaching a common goal. The common goal can be our strategy. It can be clarity on our roles and responsibilities. It can be our product roadmap. It can be what is our protocol for cleaning our instruments in the operating room. It can be anything like that. It could be a piece of any one of these models. You do ProSci, ADCAR, SCARF, etc. How do we get people agreed to so that actually allows us to row together toward this common goal and not work against each other and cross purposes? Now, historically, this kind of alignment was reached through a top-down hierarchical structure. The most important person would put out there what they thought to have happened. They would gather ideas and feedback if they were more getting buy-in, which is what a lot of people said. But even getting buy-in implies I have the answer. I need to convince you. If you're not on board, maybe I need to tweak something. But it's not as co-creative as what we really need in order to get the buy-in. But co-creativity takes a lot of time. And now that we have increased diversity and complexity, most people that I know working large systems have a very complex organizational structure. In my experience, healthcare is the most complex organizational structure because very few people actually report to someone else in the hierarchical structure. Like you might have doctors, we always have that kind of idea like, oh, the nurses do what the doctors tell them. Well, nurses kind of have their own, hierarchical structure, and they don't always do what doctors tell them, et cetera. They have more equity, thank goodness now, to be a part of that solution and more credibility and higher degrees, et cetera. So we are seeing more equity in the system, but it's making it more complex because we don't have that one person that's like, okay, well, I don't know that we'll do it because, Dr. So-and-so says, or whoever's the head of that food chain. So it didn't actually ever really work, but it really doesn't work now, especially that we have complex structures where, just today I was talking to a CFO of a bank and they're trying to do budgeting and planning. And he said, every time somebody brings on the budget, it just crashes and we don't have resolution of what's the highest priorities because we haven't agreed on that. So then we fight about it and waste a lot of time. So we did some investigation of our clients and asked them, what are some of their key alignment challenges? What is coming up for them right now? What we're seeing right now is a lot of stress about the accelerated speed of technological change. Many people are trying to do digital transformation and literally the things they're trying to transform around are already almost outdated. It's that scary. And then we have, changing workforce demographics, a lot of senior leaders that are retiring because the boomers, are aging out. We're seeing things like, really old president in the United States, right? How is this working? And then the drastic change. Last night I saw a congressman he's 26 years old that was talking. And then, he's got this very, old president he's working with. And so that is pretty common in every organization now. We're seeing a lot of age disparity with old people aging out and not enough transfer of what they know to the younger people to help them stay on board and feel empowered as leaders. And they're kind of still underneath this very large structure of people, but they have a lot of great fresh ideas. How do we let those ideas come forward and not have them get bored? We also have organizational complexity. Again, matrix structure is generally the order, which means I've got a lot of people I got to talk to in order to make things happen. Competing priorities are a super big challenge because there's always an unlimited demand on our time, money, and energy, but a limited supply. Alignment can really help us eliminate some of the things. A lot of times the hardest thing to do is to sunset a project, say no to something, because we all have a lot of great ideas. We get attached to them, but can we let them go in service of using our resources for the best thing that we can? So alignment is needed to deal with competing priorities. And also engaging the hybrid workforce. We've got employees that are quiet quitting. They're actually working from their desk in their own home. Nobody knows that they're disengaged and they just don't know what to do or they're confused. How do we help our leaders really engage and connect and make sure these people are tied in so that they can be part of this system and understand what is the process, what is expected of me, what are my roles and responsibilities. So these are all alignment challenges that the methodology I'm going to be teaching you today can address. So our alignment methodology, basically what I did is I took all the stuff I learned in grad school and I tried to make it as simple as possible to understand and to transfer to someone else so that if I worked in a system, I could leave that behind and they would know what to do, that they didn't need me constantly to help them. I was developing their capacity for change by making all of the stuff that I learned in as simple and easy to understand and memorable and common language. So often in our practice, we use very complicated language. We might talk about ontology, epistemology, action learning. We all have our lingo. And while that's super exciting for me, I could talk about it and geek out all the day long. Let's go have a glass of wine and do that. Our clients don't have time for that. And they just get glazed over. They go, I don't know, and walk away. So our alignment principles methodology involves 3 principles, 4 steps, and 5 C's. So that just shows you right now, 3, 4, 5. You can remember 3, 4, 5. Guess what? You're already onto something. That's really designed to be like an ABBA song that when you go to bed, you will not forget it. 3, 4, 5 methodology. All right. And it's a memorable success formula that makes reaching alignment inclusively and efficiently. This is the hat trick. Inclusive is easy. Everybody gets to bring their ideas and we all go good, 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 good. We stack it all together. We organize it with our stickies. We vote and we walk away. And then we say, oh, you're voluntold to take care of this, right? And nothing happens. That's because it's the Frankenstack solution. It's like everybody's idea trying to get in there, the footprint. Inclusive is easy. Inclusive and efficient and strategic, that's a hat trick. And that is what we're teaching you right now. So when leaders master the art of alignment, they can get any group of any size to make agreements and stick to them, or to agree not to do something, which is also a form of alignment. We don't always get to the end and say, okay, I got buy-in. Everybody gave me thumbs up. Everybody nodded their heads when they all thought it was stupid. That's how we usually get alignment, and it doesn't work. We want them to stick to it. So this can be used to align on any solution, change, governance, policy, processes, strategy, plans, anything you want to get people agreed to. This is your toolkit. So I like to say alignment is the way of ways. It's a way to bring things forward, and you don't have to use it every time. What happens a lot of times is you can teach them and you can use it formally, the more people that you have in the system, and boom, you can reach alignment in a very large system in a short period of time. Or you can not teach them. You can just lead them through it. I call stealth alignment, where you just start asking alignment questions. They don't even know you're doing it. So you don't always have to teach them. And then boom, you're the magician. Like we've been arguing about this for days. And, Louise came in and boom, we've got alignment. That's great, So you don't always have to leave the competency. And then what I have found is after I do alignment with my clients, a lot of my coaching contracts include meeting observations, and I can see that elements of alignment are woven into how they think about things, how they talk about things. So even if they're not using the 3, 4, 5 formula, they're using elements of the formula, and they're much more likely to be aware of where they've got alignment, where they don't, and to troubleshoot around it. So there's a lot of cost of misalignment anytime you're in an organization, and I want you to think about this really tangibly. Think of a group that you support. Do they suffer from any of these problems? If they do, probably misalignment is under it. Do they have conflict? Are they confused about what to do? Do they spin around decisions and kick it and wait for somebody else to make a decision or talk about stuff and never decide anything? Or do decisions have entropy? By the time that they get down to the people who have to implement them, they don't even know why they're doing it. So they just don't care and they don't do it. So if the answer is yes to any of these questions, look there. Alignment is costing you time, money, and energy. Now, when we have alignment, what we have the opposite. So I want you to think about that same group. Where do they have clarity? Where do they have focus? Do they have commitment? Do they have people passionate and fired up? Do they have momentum? Chances are there's some kind of great leader in there that is very instinctively or intuitively working towards alignment. Now, there's been studies done of alignments by, there's LSA Global Resource, not my organization, but they've done studies on highly aligned companies, and they have proven that alignment has a very high ROI. Here's some metrics they have here. Retaining companies, those that are aligned from companies that are misaligned, 2.23 to 1, satisfying companies 3.2 to 1, effectively leading 8.7 to 1. Again, Bob Anderson, who wrote The Leadership Circle, read my book, and he said, alignment is the unspoken promise of leadership, that you will help us do this as a leader. So effectively leading key makes sense. You do alignment, good leadership. Engaging employees, 16.8 to 1. I will tell you, this is not the output, this is the input. If you're not engaging employees, you will not get alignment. So in a way, it's kind of a false metric, but it's definitely correlated. You need to engage people to come to alignment. All right. So I made my little case here. I'm like, are you guys excited now to learn the 3-4-5 formula? Because I'm going to give you just a little bit of it, not the whole shebang, but enough, hopefully, that you get a sense of the value, the utility of it, that you'll be interested in learning more, or that you can start using it. I have had people who have told me that they picked up my book. Here it is right here. It's 250 pages, and there's an audio copy for people who don't read. You don't even have to read it. You can have somebody read it to you. And they've told me that they use it, with their teams, et cetera. So you don't, need a whole lot. But of course, we would be very excited if you'd be interested in joining our budding alignment community of alignment practitioners and learn it on a deeper level. So for now, I'm going to give you your little primer. Here we go. Art of alignment. What we're trying to achieve is one goal: alignment. Alignment around what? It kind of depends on what you're working on. You may be working with the team on their team norms. You may be working with the CEO on the organizational structure. It's something that you're trying to get people to agree. That could be between 2 or more players. So I can tell you that I've done alignment with like groups of size of 30 and 40 fairly regularly that I can bring. Laura and I brought 30 rocket scientists in a room. They were working on the Artemis rocket that's going to Mars. This is super exciting. And the first thing the guy said was, why are we here with LeadershipSmarts? Because we're going to Mars. And if we do this, it will be the most technologically advanced thing ever done in the history of the world. So that was kind of exciting. And he's like, yeah, we need alignment for this, because multiple organizations are working on this, et cetera, very complicated. So you can have many, many players because it's a layered solution. I can do alignment within myself. Like half the time I'm trying to align myself and my evil twin who has 2 different ideas of what I should do, so you can do alignment, 1 person, 2 people, small team, organization, trans organization, et cetera. So can be used at any scale. Well, how are we going to do that? With 3 principles, 4 steps, and 5 C's. So here's an important thing to understand. True alignment cannot be forced or faked. Most organizations achieve alignment this way. Forced alignment, senior leader says we're going to do this. We all know we have to. If we don't, we may lose our job, or we may be demoted, or we may be shamed in public, et cetera. We may have to hang our head down with the red all over the chart that's being shown about what we've achieved and not achieved. Then we have fake alignment, which is where people get in a room and they pretend to agree. Usually it's out of expediency. I know I don't really have time. This is not the place. I'll handle it later. So when they say, hey, any questions? Nope. Everybody got this? Yep. Everybody ready? Yep. They go off. Let me tell you, those nodding heads mean nothing. So one of the important things that we're trying to do in our process is to avoid both of these, forced and faked alignment. And how do we do that when we got time? All right, so we do this with a 3-4-5 formula, 3 principles, 4 steps, and 5 C's. The 3 principles are organic ideas that if we follow these principles, we can generally fall into alignment over time. So we don't need to have a prescriptive process. They're the philosophy behind alignment. And then we have the 4 steps and 5 C's, which is a process we can use for alignment if we have a large group and a very difficult process we need to work towards. So what's kind of interesting is the 3 principles are baked into the 4 steps and 5 C's. So you don't have to teach this. If you do the 4 steps and 5 C's enough, the principles will just fall out. They'll start to do it and follow it kind of intuitively. So it's all designed to go together. So we have the 3 principles of alignment. So the 3 principles of alignment are iterative co-creation, the Shuva principle, and versatility. We don't have time to go into all these principles today, so I'm just going to hit one of them. I will tell you that I'm very excited because I have just done a TEDx talk on the Shuva principle, and it's been released today. So we'll make sure you all get the video for that. So you can get the Shuva class. Shuva is an acronym that stands for see, hear, understand, value, and appreciate. And basically that is the context where alignment comes through. So I won't be teaching that today other than just to let you know. I'd love it if you guys would watch this TEDx talk and send it around the world, because I want to create a Shuva nation, where everybody's feeling seen, heard, understood, valued, and appreciated, where we can get in a room, and that's how we set up our conversations. So I won't be teaching that one today, but I'll touch lightly on this others. So first one is iterative co-creation. For those of you who have been involved in agile type projects with software, this is built into agile philosophy, which is that in order to make something, we like to say co-creativity leads to co-ownership. So instead of putting a senior leader putting their idea out there and just asking for thumbs up or votes or et cetera, we want him to involve other people, him or her or they, to involve other people in the refinement of that idea until they're all believing in it. And usually this takes more than one shot because we have neurodiversity. People will get in the room. You have extroverts that dominate the conversation. I'm sure all of us have experienced that. And introverts who sit there and have a lot of information, don't say much unless you ask them, et cetera. When we are able to put an idea out there and kind of gather feedback, let people go away, process it, read it, et cetera, and then come back and finalize a decision, generally speaking, we reach alignment much faster. So at a minimum, we want to have maybe 2 meetings to reach alignment. Sometimes it takes multiple meetings. One time I did a whole organizational restructuring government agency, a federal agency here in the US, and it was 45 days of meetings. So it was a really long time period with lots of leaders working on multiple alignment sessions independent of that. So iterative was my friend. We also want to practice this in a practical way, and we accept that when we work iteratively and co-creatively, some people may be able to really work deeply and understand this, and other people not have as much time, energy, or even know it well enough. So we like to allocate what we call voice, vote, and veto. Some people, we want to give everyone a voice. We never want to shut down anyone from saying what they think should happen. But we want to give votes to people that are there for the whole entire deliberation so that they can be in the best position to understand all of the factors, even if we can't get everybody in a room every time. So distributing voice and vote is a key part of the iterative co-creative process. So there we go. That's one of the first one. Again, a memorable success formula. We have a lot of these. Co-creativity leads to co-ownership. When people are involved in creating something together, they don't take down what they build. So let's get them in the room, presenting an idea, creating an idea, and getting to an agreement. So when we get people in a room, we implement our 4 steps and 5 C's of alignment. The 4 steps and 5 C's is a process. Again, this is also designed to be memorable. But basically, anytime that we get people in a room, we want to use the 4 steps and 5 C's to make a decision. And ideally, we teach them so then they just start doing it on their own. This is a way for us to go from divergent to convergent thinking in a very short period of time. And it involves these 4 steps. So the 4 steps of alignment are propose, probe, repropose, close. Again, this is designed to be a little like memorable haiku. So what I want to ask everyone to do is to just say this aloud. I know you're behind, mute, but I'm going to just walk you through saying it. When we get to the I want to say it 3 times. First 2 times, I want you to read the words. The third time, I want you to close your eyes and say it. So I'm going to say it. First time. Propose, probe, repropose, close. Propose, probe, repropose, close. Okay, close your eyes. Propose, probe, repropose, close. Okay, now I'm not going to say anything. I want you to say it to yourself. Okay, now you can open your eyes, right? And see if you kind of got it. This is a very logical thing. Somebody comes up with an idea and they make a proposal. Again, sometimes there's the pre-proposal, there's the brainstorming sessions, the 1, 2, 4 all liberating structures thing, or your crowdsourcing thing. But at some point, to move towards alignment, we need somebody to formulate a proposal, or somebody's, it could be a little committee, come up with a proposal, bring it to the group, go through a probe process where they find out whether people like what's come up, and using the 5 C's. Then ideally they take that information and formulate it into a reproposal. This is what people often don't do. They do a proposal, they probe and they talk about it, but then nobody summarizes, where are we at now? What are we actually deciding? And then we close. We say, okay, this is the decision. And we document it and we send that out. So this is a very simple structure. What step are we on? Propose, probe, repropose, or close. And what I have found is that if you separate this, ideally you have somebody, instead of doing 1 long meeting with your decision maker, do 2, 1/2 hour. I'm going to do my proposal. I'm going to find out what you like and don't like about it. Then I'm going to take all that information offline, bring it back. Okay, sponsor, let's now repropose what we're doing. Now let's close. Okay, this is what the change project is, and how you're going to be a sponsor, and how I'm going to be a consultant. Block style. We're going to do that co-creatively. So this is kind of a variation on some of Block's ideas. It is proposals that turn what I call whines to wows. Like if I have a point of dissatisfaction, ideally I'm coaching people all the time. And I was just coaching the CFO today, just got through his budget process, and he was whine about how they didn't start early enough, and they didn't do this and this. And I go, okay, well, what's your proposal for how they should do it different next year? Let's talk about that. Let's get that on the table with your CEO backing you up, and let's get started on having, budget clinics so people know what to do. So he was able to take that dissatisfaction, what's bugging him, turn it into a vision of his leaders from the different parts of their organization working together more co-creatively. And a first step, what proposal or request can I make? So just the step of I propose has been absolutely transformational for many people I coach, getting them out of reactivity into creativity with the words I propose, and asking for 1 or 2 meetings for that to be taken seriously. Completely game-changing, empowering our organization. Okay, now we get to the next, the 5 C's. So we get to the probe step. We have clarifications, compliments, concerns, changes, and commitment. This is, again, a 5 C's, a way of remembering the different areas we can ask questions around to make sure we've got everybody on board. So I want to go through this in detail. It's very important to do it in this order. So first of all is clarifications. Half the time people sit with the proposal thrown out there and they have no idea what's being discussed. They're too embarrassed to ask the question. So there's acronyms being used, and they're sitting there going, okay, I don't know what that acronym means. I probably should know by now. So ideally, whoever is facilitating, whether that's the leader who's made the proposal or it's the facilitator that they've hired, would just ask people what needs to be clarified in the proposal. So we can start there. Everybody understands the same thing. So then we move on to compliments. So often proposals come out, we immediately rip into what the problems are with it. We have ideas for how we want to change it. But I always emphasize that we want to imagine that this proposal this person's made is like a baby they just had, and they brought it out. They've spent all this time doing their slides or doing whatever. And we want to treat them with like we would somebody had a baby. If I had a baby and you said, I said, here's my baby. And everybody went, well, it's got big ears, and I don't know what's going to happen. You're going to have to get some braces on that someday. That would feel bad to me, right? So instead I would want to hear like, oh, what a beautiful baby it is. So I have this little phrase, always praise the baby before you raise the baby. Make sure that anyone who does a proposal gets a compliment or two, because it's scary to put your ideas out there. How do we make it psychologically safe? So then after we can go to concerns. This is really key. Concerns address risk factors associated with the proposal, missing information, wrong information. But if we talk about it as a concern, it's much easier and palatable for the person making the proposal to digest it. So we say, okay, what concerns do you have? Versus, okay, let's get some critical feedback, some constructive feedback to this person. It just doesn't feel good. So we're trying to make it nicer for people to bring up their concerns and for people to feel welcome to bring their concerns. That's helping you. It's not just criticizing you, not just making you feel bad, not just pointing the holes in everything you're doing. It's helping you. Now we go to the next one, changes. So a lot of times concerns and changes come together. I have a concern and you go, okay, what ideas do you have to address that concern? Sometimes they don't. Sometimes people have concerns and they don't have an idea to fix it because sometimes the original idea wasn't really very feasible. Can we accept that there's enough concerns that there aren't changes to fix it? So we decide not to do it. But if there are ideas for changes, then we can put those ideas out there and invite people to improve upon the idea by suggesting changes to what's being proposed. Next, we go to our commitment test. This is very seldom done. Normally they say, okay, everybody good? Answer is always yes, almost always. Nobody says no. Can we instead get people more comfortable with showing their actual level of commitment? So just asking the question, okay, now we want to check for commitment. On a scale of 1 to 5, how committed are you? And I always use this, fist to 5. This comes from Agile, which is basically it's, we always can remember if it's a 5, I love it. And if it's a 1, I hate it. That's one way to remember it. But if that's too crude for you, you don't have to do that. Hospitals like that. But basically the idea is that a fist is a block, which means I will block. I'll do anything for this idea not to go forward. 1 means there's major issues. We really should not proceed. I'm totally not on board. A 2 means I see issues we need to resolve. I don't know why that's doing that balloon thing, but anyway, 2, that there's major issues we need to resolve before we go forward. 3 means it's good enough. Let's just do this. I don't love it, but it's good. A 4 means I do like this a lot. And a 5 means I am totally on board. Like, I cannot wait for us to start this. So this can easily be done, especially in a room like this, where you can have people just put their number in chat. And you can say, okay, don't even hit enter until I say go, so that you can't game on each other. We can't say, oh, Christopher likes it, so I like it, kind of thing. And then boom, 1 to 5. You can also do this with a show of hands. Everybody I say, put your heads down, rock, paper, scissors, shoot. 5. Okay, well, how many 5s we got? Let's document it so that we get used to being people actually doing what they say they're going to do. All right. So now we have this 4 steps and 5 C's of alignment. You've learned it. So now what we want to do is do it, right? So I got Laura here queued up. We talked all about this. But before we go there, though, any questions so far about what I've shared? Or any comments? I just want to open it up for a minute or two before we go to practice. Somebody say something. Otherwise, I feel like I'm going to, your friendly faces. Thank you for that.
So Patty, I was curious with the fist to 5. Do you have ever have anyone who's just like, oh no, we're not going to do that. Like, that's silly. Do you have any responses like that, or how does that land with leaders? I'm just curious.
Yeah, any kind of prescriptive process is always difficult because you've got some people who hate those. I always just say, let's run an experiment, just try it. I usually say, well, tell me what you don't like about that. Like, what is it that's bothering you? And then I try to explain the rationale for why we do it. And then I say, well, let's just try it a couple of times. If you still hate it, then let's, renegotiate. Right. So that's kind of how I handle those things. I also just sometimes say, it's hard to know until you actually do it. Again, experience makes the difference. And one of the best ways to introduce alignment is a really thorny issue. and just kind of force march people through it. And they go, oh, well, that actually wasn't so hard. I actually did an alignment the other day there were two parts of an organization, and one part of the organization is in the corporate office and the other part is down in Arkansas, and they feel sort of beat up by the corporation. And they were like, we could never align. There's no way we'll ever align. And, I said, well, let's just try it. And then they were amazed. And one day they aligned on 3 things. They couldn't even believe they reached it. And they're like, okay, I know it's kind of dumb and it's awkward, but let's do it. All right, Nikki, is that Nikhil? I'm not sure how you say your name.
Hi, yes, it's Nikki.
Okay.
Hi. I have a question about the impact of having the right people in the room when you have these alignment conversations. Can you speak to that?
Yes, it is very important to have, in my opinion, the more people that are part of the system that you have, the better. And too often we have what we call, I want to say unintended consequences, but externalities is the word for it. So let's say I have a problem I'm solving with engineering, but then I don't have like the marketing people in the room, and then that ends up being an issue. The marketing people aren't in the room when an engineering decision is being made about a huge feature change and, stuff like that. So those are just things. So ideally, we're able to bring people into the room and give them a voice, let them hear the deliberation. Maybe they don't have a vote because it's not really up to them. So that voice and vote helps a lot with that. We are developing software for this alignment solution so that people could also do alignment offline, not all have to be in the same room at the same time. Also, sometimes you have very important people, and so you have to walk through and do multiple alignments. Like I'll go talk to the CFO, and then I'll go talk to the CEO, and then I'll go talk to this person. We had a person who did that was working with a city, and they needed to make a presentation to the mayor. And they ran their proposal by all of these key people, one at a time, got their feedback, changed things on the fly for the reproposal, then got them all in the room, then made the proposal to the mayor and was able to say, these people are pretty much on board. These people are not as big a fan of this idea for these reasons, and present that honestly. And then they were able to reach a line with the mayor like that. This, was really an interesting process, but it's very difficult to get people in a room. It's ideally you go to them and you cater to their, super busy 15-minute increment of time they can give you. So that's my way of handling it. Yeah. All right. So those are some good questions. I'm thinking now we get ourselves set up to actually experience it with a fun little thing. And so I have invited Laura Sprinkle. She's our training manager. She helps us with our Certified Alignment Practitioner program. And she's got a proposal that she's going to be bringing to the table. And you all, we're going to see if we can align around her proposal. Is everybody ready for that?
Yay.
Using the 4 steps, 5 C's.
Okay. It's a little devious, but my proposal is, will you dance with me? And I don't have my screen set up. Patty, could you share the slide from yours?
Sure.
So my proposal is that everybody in this virtual room, dance the salsa in this session, wherever you are in your space, to just see how this alignment thing works. So that's my proposal. And Patty is going to play our facilitator role today and take us through the 5 C's.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to just 1 second here, bring up a document. And I'm going to change my share screen setting to
Is everybody leaving?
everybody's like, yeah, I'm done now.
Bye.
Only one person dropped off. I was watching that.
All right. So we have Laura's proposal here, who we dance the salsa in this session wherever we are to see if this time thing works. So now we're going to do the 5 C's. So what clarifications do people need to understand what Laura is proposing?
Will we get some instructions? Yes, I will teach you A very, very, very basic salsa step, with the disclaimer that I am not a dancer and certainly not a salsa teacher. So let's see, we've got some more questions coming through. So will you get some instructions? Yes. Will it be sufficient? I don't know, but I'll do my best. What is the salsa? The salsa is a style of music and a very, wide-ranging dance steps. We're going to do a super basic step today. What is the purpose? The purpose really is to experience the 4 steps and the 5 C's. Are there modifications? There can be. We can certainly discuss that when we get to concerns and changes. So we can certainly make modifications. Do we have to be on camera? I mean, my preference as the proposer is yes, this is much more fun if we're all on camera together. But we're going to get, let's see. So we can raise some of that when we get to the concerns question 2 about being on camera or not. Will you accommodate those of us in wheelchairs? Absolutely, yes. I would suggest when we get to changes that somebody make a suggestion for how we might accommodate someone who's either in a wheelchair or maybe who has knee problems or back problems or other ability challenges that make dancing difficult.
I just would like to, I want to add a little time at a time on this. I just wanted to say that this particular exercise is designed to provoke a little anxiety and to make us uncomfortable so that we get to deal with that, because that happens a lot of times in alignment challenges. And one of the things that comes up often is this physical issue. And I wanted to say that I believe that's a good thing, because so often people have, and we've actually discovered that 30% of adults that are working have some sort of disabling condition that impedes their ability to do their job, but it's not being talked about. Can we create a safe environment to actually discuss that? We can just avoid it, the discussion, but might we be able to open up the conversation so it's okay? So that may be a little uncomfortable in this, but I invite you to go for it. That's just a little time out of time to kind of bring that point up. But go, Laura, you go.
Yes.
What else? What other clarifications do people need?
We've got, will we supply the music? Yes. The song selection for the dance is Mark Anthony, I Need to Know. So it's a fun jam. What if I've never done this before? No worries at all. If you can move your body in any way, you'll be able to do this. Do we get to practice before everyone sees? Not really. So I'll give you a very short, just kind of step instructional before the music starts, and then we'll all just kind of learn and do together.
All right.
Does attire matter? Yes. In fact, you all need to go change into your salsa outfits. No, it doesn't matter at all. Sometimes when we're in Zoom, though, you might have like not the most professional thing on the bottom half. So yeah, if that's the case, maybe
pants, right?
Yes, ideally you have on pants.
Or skirts.
Any other clarifying questions?
All right. Compliments. What do people like about this idea? And you guys can put your voice in the room. It's nice you're using chat, but it's also kind of fun to hear people talk in an alignment. So yeah, feel free to rate
could be fun, gets us out of our comfort zone. Sounds fun. Yeah, some people are probably like, yeah, this is so fun. And then there are other people who are like, I'd rather die than do this. Good exercise after lunch. Yeah. Right, well, thank you.
Where I'm scribing, right?
Great move break. Yeah, it is good. We just sit so much in a chair in front of the computer. And so I can have room to salsa dance. I'm actually like in my living room and not in my office. So I'm not in a very comfortable chair.
Yeah.
Clever exercise for teaching alignments. like the idea of a group activity. Feels like going on an adventure together. Oh, how fun. I love that, Andrea.
All right. Are we ready to hit changes, or are there more compliments I'm missing out of the chat while I'm scribing here? By the way, oftentimes when we get groups to do this, we'll ask someone from the group to scribe and to do it in a way that people can see. You know, ideally as facilitators, you have flip charts and people can see that, but I'm finding that it's also just really helpful to have a Google Doc and write it in the Google Doc, let people see it, then they can access it later. Sometimes we even have the person that makes a presentation, like Laura, a facilitator like myself, and a scribe and a timekeeper. And then we might even have the group that whatever you scribe, give it to someone else and say, you do the proposal. So we're starting to hand off and get more people involved in solving the problem together. All right, with that, let's go to concerns. What concerns do folks have?
What if I fall? Workplace injury. You know, I don't think in all the times we've done this exercise, anybody has ever brought up falling in workplace injury. So I would say my best suggestion for that is, you know, to move carefully if you are a fall risk, or sit down, stay seated, you know, that's okay too. What if we have space constrictions? You don't really need any more space than just like a, you know, 1 foot square to really do this. So you should all be fine if you have room to move your chair out of the way or back. The session is being recorded. Can the recording feature be turned off? I mean, of course it can, but I think that's something that we all have to kind of agree to as a group. You know, is this something we're just going to do privately for the people who are attending this session, or is this an experience that we'd like to have other people have the opportunity to view?
Yeah, I'd like to just go back to this being a concern. So what is the concern about it being recorded? Let's get that down, and then we can talk about whether you want to change it or not. So we stay in order. When you think about it being
And we also had a suggested change in there to address that session being recorded, having an option to turn off your camera is the suggested change there.
But let's get back to what the concern is, because sometimes I think people bring up concerns and we're not sure, well, there may be some risk factor we're not even paying attention to there. Is the concern just being uncomfortable, or is it that it's going to be distributed widely, right? And then that's awkward for people who weren't part of the consenting. All right, so we're kind of getting to the sense of that. Any other concerns? So it sounds like there's a concern that the people who are here are consenting to be recorded, but then it gets distributed, and that may feel like, you know, people who weren't a part of it. Because you will be, Christopher, can you clarify, this will be distributed, the video will be redistributed?
Yes, it will be.
Okay, and then, yeah, people who might not have all the context would be watching it. I'm typing the wrong thing. All right.
And any suggested changes to address that?
Yeah, what change would you suggest? Oh, we have the concern, what if my office mate sees me? Okay, one change could turn off the camera. We could also turn off the recording, right?
Yeah, we could just pause it and say, hey, you know, for people watching this recording, we're going to do this exercise and we'll be back to unpack.
Yeah, for that piece of the session. I was going to say the question about the office mate. I'm going to just jump in here. So your office mate may see you, which could be horrible. So we don't know what your situation is with your office mate seeing you, you know, but it could also be like something that you bring up later. Like we saw you doing that. What the heck was this? And you go, I was learning this alignment thing. It was super cool. So you could turn it into a win, or you could be like, okay, that person is going to give me hell forever if I do this. So I'm not doing that. You get to be your own judge there.
And Christopher suggested asking them to join you.
Yeah. All right.
But no forced partner dancing. Make sure you get their consent before you salsa dance with someone in your office.
We got a dog. All right. So
I suspect your dog will enjoy it.
Uh-huh.
So what
Any
about,
other
you know,
changes?
in the clarifications part, there were some questions raised about ability. And so did anyone have any specific concerns or changes around that topic of how we could make this
Yeah,
accommodating for everyone?
ability and safety is a concern happening. Arm salsa moves,
Arm,
okay.
love it. Yes, chair dancing is a-okay. Also, you know, seriously, I mean, many people have major back stuff that's very common, and the salsa has a lot of, you know, kind of swaying and sort of hip movements in it. So it could be clapping, just engaging your body in some rhythmic way that is participatory. So you don't have to stand up and go all out and spin and shimmy and shake. But you know, what we would hope for is that you would participate to your highest level of ability. If that was clapping, if that was arm dancing, if that was full out salsa dancing.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have visual. I'm going to give you visual instructions as in you're going to watch me, but I don't have like a visual to show.
Yeah. So before we run the commitment test, Laura, let's see if we can share some of the modifications we've made because people have brought such good ideas to the office. So we would still include everybody here, right? Is that not, that didn't come up as a concern, so that stays the same. Dance the salsa, this would be maybe after learning a few steps. In our chairs or just moving our arms, right? So in whatever way is whatever way is safe and suits your ability. Anything else? Do we
Can I raise a point here?
Yep.
What would be, sorry, I should have let you answer first. What would happen if someone here at this point said, why does it have to be salsa dancing? You know, I want to do rap dancing, something like that. Like, how would you address that?
Right. So I would put that as a change that they would, you know, like to change into another song or beat, which by the way did happen for me because I did this exercise in Jamaica where they don't do salsa, they do the stir fry, as I found out. And so I said, well, I know how to teach the salsa and I have the music queued up. So if anyone else would like to teach us to dance and has music queued up, I would welcome that. So I just kind of bring up the idea, or I can do this first and then we can do that one. You know, we can just add to it. And usually the answer is, oh, I was just joking. People will do that. They'll joke. And we see that often too in actual real alignments where people might bring up something absurd to kind of break the, you know, like, you know, whatever it is. That's not absurd, but you know what I mean? Something that's a little bit off. And I actually have in the last chapter of my book, what I call disruptors to alignment. And that's what can be like a sidewinding behavior where you're always making a joke at the end or throwing people off or bringing something up that really changes the whole game, you know, and there's some information in there about how to deal with that if your facilitator runs into that on a regular basis. But that's a good question. So we going back to the reproposal process before we run our little commitment test. So let's address the concern about video. Laura, what would you recommend in terms of video for us to in the reproposal?
You know, I think what feels most intuitive to me is for us to have a short disclaimer to the people watching the recording to turn the recording off and respect the, you know, participation of everybody in the room, and then resume recording when we're done with the exercise. I don't know if everybody feels okay with that as a solution. We haven't, I don't think, clarified if cameras are on or off, or if that's optional. I'd like to clarify that before we move forward.
So what would be a reproposal around people having their cameras on or off?
What would be mine?
Yeah.
Well, since I'm playing the role of leader here, and this is my proposal, I would encourage everyone to turn their camera on, unless you have just some reason for being off, like maybe you're in a weird space, or you have, debilitating anxiety about being on camera. I mean, there are reasons to stay behind camera. So I would say, yes, it's optional, but strongly encouraged for just the portion of the dancing for us all together. But if you have a reason to have your camera off, then of course that's fine. We're not going to go force anybody to be on camera.
Yeah, I just want to say that we want to, encourage people to move outside their comfort zone, because it'll be kind of fun if we're all dancing, we're all like really actively engaging, but we understand some people may have actually debilitating anxiety, of which this is actually a big, huge ask of you. So we ask you to just monitor for yourself what your comfort level is on this. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to this reproposal, Laura?
What about time? So the actual song length is a little over 3 minutes. So I'm curious, nobody asked about the length of time that I'll be asking you to salsa dance. So is everybody okay with 3+ minutes of dancing, or anyone propose a change there?
To clarify, keep your camera on. However, the recording will be turned off while dancing, so that only we will see each other, and then it'll all be lost forever. And
3 minutes is long. I will tell you, it doesn't seem long. It is long. 30 seconds is probably not long enough. So how about a minute-ish? Does that sound like a good compromise for our reproposal?
I'm gonna put 1.5 here.
Okay. Yeah, 1-ish.
All right. And any other on the why you want to add to just kind of reinforce what we're really trying to do here?
It has to see if it works. I would also say just to experience the 4 steps and the 5 C's as a participant. And we will take just a minute or two to allow you all to kind of set up your space if you need to, move back or get out of the, change your camera. We'll be doing that as well. I'm going to be back there so you can see my feet.
I just want to point to something here. In our proposal teaching, we always, you need to know at a minimum who will do what by when and why. Otherwise, your proposal is actually super fuzzy. So we want you to just notice that there is a little bit of like teaching people to actually be specific, so people can know what they're agreeing to or not agreeing to. So I'm going to move into a commitment test on this. So how
will we know if everyone participates? We had a couple other questions. I love dancing, but have to leave the call. Okay, thanks, Andrea. We won't know if everyone participates. It's kind of the honor system. So we encourage you to do so. We hope that many of you behind camera will choose to come, in front of the camera, but there's no way to know.
All right. So for the commitment test, I wanted to just bring back the slide I have. Hold on here. So we'll go to the PowerPoint and this slide. All right. So I want to talk about voice, vote, and veto. So everyone has had a voice so far. We would like to reach consensus on this. However, this is not a total democracy. We're the presenters here running this particular session. So we will leave it to Laura and Christopher together to confer on, if we don't reach consensus, what the fallback decision is going to be, also in the interest of time. We could fall back into a democratic, like if most people agree, but there's some risk factors in that. And there's other risk factors for Chris and Laura to take, the veto power in this, but we'll see how that goes. I just want to bring up that, for some organizations, they're not ready to go completely to consensus decisions. We talk about it a lot, but we don't really understand what it is. So this is an important learning for people. So again, we're going to ask you to go to your chat and open that up. And we're going to ask you to put in a number from 1 to 5, 0 to 5. 0 means block. I always like to teach people that if you're going to do a block, ideally you only do 1 or 2 of those in your entire career. You don't go blocking things. And you're also not allowed to throw a block if you haven't said anything and wrote something in the chat that you were worried about. You can't just sit there silently and then throw a block. Okay. Part of teaching people. A 1 means you think that we really shouldn't do this. A 2 means that you have a lot of concerns before you decide to do this, which we will discuss it again. A 3 means it's minimally, it's okay. You can live with it. A 4 means you're excited. A 5 means like, let's go. So I'm going to ask, we're going to do a chat or fall. So I'm going to put the number in 1 to 5, and then I'm going to say go. Ready? Go. So we see a lot of 4s and 3s coming up. 4s. Somebody throw in a 2 or a 1 just so we can see for fun.
Oh, looks like we might be at consensus. Oh, no, here we go. 1 or 2.
All right, we got a 1 or 2. So if Tina or Jen, the brave one. So first of all, we want to celebrate dissension. Somebody actually is brave enough, even though there's all these 3s and 4s coming up, to say, hey, I'm not happy with this. I know this is maybe a little bit of a role play because I asked somebody to throw in a 1 or 2, but would my Tina or Jen please clarify what their 1 or 2 is about? Real quick so we can hear that.
Yeah.
And what would move you up to?
So my concern is just personal embarrassment in front of everyone. And I don't want to dance in front of everyone. My camera's not at a great angle, and I feel like I'm going to salsa dance and everyone's just going to see my thighs, and that's not something that I want to participate in.
Okay, well, thanks for
I
don't
totally
feel that way, but I wanted to be the naysayer.
The dissenter.
Yeah, gotcha. And we had another naysayer. Could the other naysayer maybe speak up?
That was just me. I was just responding to try and help fill out. But I think that what Christina said is something similar that I could agree with in terms of that. What Tina has said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to bring up something. I didn't talk about versatility. That's one of the principles of alignment is versatility, which is understanding opposite energies. And so, and also understanding kind of the masculine and feminine side of leadership. A lot of people are not happy with this masculine, feminine language, but if you'll bear with me for a second, I'll explain. So, on the masculine side, archetypally masculine is the idea that this needs to make sense. It's logical. This is what we're doing. This is about our business. This is numbers. This is metrics, etc. And then there's the more feminine side, which is more about our feelings, and so when somebody brings up a feeling like they just feel uncomfortable, it may not be a rational thing. It may not even make a lot of sense that they feel uncomfortable. Like probably maybe the person, I've had this happen before, where the person who's like got the, like the best body and dances salsa better than anybody else, and they're the ones that have the misgiving, not the awkward person or whatever, you know what I mean? So it doesn't even have to make sense. But can we as leaders create room for facts, figures, feelings, what makes sense, and allow for feelings to come forward without having a person feel bad? So thank you, Tina, for bringing up something in a vulnerable way like that. So I want to also just share that. So in the reproposal, I just want to emphasize that Laura brought up that if anybody has kind of anxiety or crippling, or they have a reason, or they don't feel good, they may opt out, but we just strongly encourage you not to opt out because it's a lot more fun when everyone participates. So I'm just wondering, Tina, if that's enough to get you to a 3.
Sure is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah. And
go ahead, Laura.
I also just want to share that I've done this a bunch of times and I want to die inside every time. So it's okay. If you feel awkward or embarrassed, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I also like to share that I actually got a lot of IT engineers in Oklahoma to do this. So if you're thinking, there's no way I could get CEOs to do this or whatever, I have had the test. Let me tell you, they did it. They had a great time. It was a big bonding thing. And they were like, okay, next time, what are you going to teach us? What dance are you going to teach us? So I was like, well, what about dancing?
And we did get that room of 30 plus rocket scientists to do this too. And believe me, they were not excited about it.
Yes, they were really excited.
They were not excited about it. But through the 5 C's and the reproposal process, we came to a reproposal that's different from what we have here, that everybody could agree to, that everybody could live with.
All right.
Okay.
So now that we've reached alignment, we'll follow through on the exercise. Laura, you queued up the music and all that, right?
I have. So we're just going to give everybody a quick minute, if you need it, to adjust your space. And then before I start the music, I will show you this very basic steps, again, with my disclaimer that I am not a salsa teacher. So if you do know the salsa, please don't judge. Okay, let's see.
I just wonder if I get back enough that you can see my feet.
I know, right? You want to see feet.
So what I'm going to do is turn the recording off now so everyone getting into position can feel comfortable.
So our next step is to, we're going to throw you all in breakout rooms and just ask you to, let's see, I'll put this slide up, but to just have a little mini conversation with another person to kind of formulate your thinking about your experience, what you noticed, what insights emerged, what questions you may have as we're rolling toward the end. And then we'll all come back together and unpack anything we may have discovered by having this experience together. So, Laura, I think, I don't know if you're prepared to throw people.
I've got the rooms ready, but were you going to throw up that slide, or should we just pop it in the chat?
I'll pop it in the chat. Hold on. Let me see. I'm sure there's talk about whatever they want here, but ideally we're going to come back and this kind of just helps you to process it together. You can grab the questions from the chat. That helps you in your rooms of 2 or 3, depending on how many rooms we need to make.
Okay, so what insights emerged? What questions do you have? What'd you like? What'd you learn? We're going to put you in pairs. You'll have 8 minutes to chat about what you just experienced, and then we'll come back together and we'll talk about it as a group. And Chris, if you could just pause the recording while we're in the breakout groups, we'll resume it when we get back. Oh wait, I can do that actually. Right, can't I? No, I can't. Okay. All right, see you guys in.
So Julie, I'm curious, you go next and then Christopher, and then Alyssa.
We've talked a lot about the mental models required before heading into that type of conversation, and if there was a need to have a certain mental model, when you may be working in an organization that has a hierarchical decision-making process. And so is there pre-work that needs to occur or not?
So yes, I think that it kind of depends on the system. So if I'm working in a very hierarchical system, I say we're going to do alignment, but these people are the decision makers and they have the final say. They always have veto. So I give them their veto because they have it anyway. We all know if they don't like something, they'll reverse it. But I'm trying to help them to say, okay, but use your veto power wisely, because if you invite people to give you ideas and you veto it every time, you're not working. That's not going to work. So I really would coach them, encourage them to be open, to pick the people for the initial proposals that they trust more, maybe even get a preview of those proposals beforehand. So something's not thrown up there they don't totally like. So these are like baby steps that you can do with a very hierarchical leader. Sometimes you walk into an organization that's the opposite. And I've run into this a lot in healthcare, especially social services, where they never want to have anybody be in charge of anything. And so then they have a really hard time making a decision, so you have kind of an opposite issue where you have to get people more comfortable with like voicing their dissatisfaction or their concerns, so that they're not kind of colluding with not wanting people to feel bad when they don't really like something, the issue. I don't know if that answers your question. Did that get to what you were asking, Julie? Give you some tips. Yeah. Christopher, what about for you? What's your question?
Absolutely. So less of a question, more of an insight that came up in our short little debrief there, where we talk a lot as OD of how do we get executive to buy into our ideas and buy into our pitches and all of that. And the reframe that this offered me is, well, how do we actually put the like the proposal forward, but then build alignment with the executive, highlight the concerns, shift the like repropose based on their the feedback that we received. So, and it's a subtle shift, but I think it changes the question around buy-in with exec kind of substantially. It reframes it in a different way for me, which is helpful.
Yeah, I will say that I borrowed shamelessly from Peter Block and mentioned him multiple times. He is absolutely my, you know, like, I don't know, Laura will tell you, like, I'm totally gaga about him. I mean, you know, and I think that the one thing that I don't know that that I feel I've added to some of the work that Peter's done is more information about how to deal with a hierarchical organization and multiple layers of decision that have to happen. And Peter wasn't very specific about how to get alignment with people, just that you needed to get the contract with the person, you know, and you need to clarify your role and their role. And so that using alignment to do that will go much faster, I think, because of it just has kind of a logical map that you could add on top of what he's saying that you might do in a more organic way. You know, if you're Peter, you could probably convince anybody to do anything. But for some of us that don't have the kind of, you know, magic that Peter has, we need more, a little bit stronger process. We have Julie, surprised insight. Can you say, bring your voice in, Julie, bring it up.
Sorry, I was just saying that I had an insight that had nothing to do with the process, but just realizing that I really like dancing. I forgot that I did.
Good. You know, I think
what a lovely outcome.
Yeah. Did any other insights emerge about like just how it felt to be brought in this way? Like, imagine if you were brought into more decisions this way. Would that feel good? Would you feel like you were free to answer, you know? How did it feel to be a part of the decision-making process this way versus how you might normally do it? And let's hear from somebody who hasn't spoken much. I don't think we heard from.
I'll comment. Can you hear me okay, Patty? Yeah?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, I think in our little group, we talked, so first I enjoyed the process, and I love frameworks, and especially simple ones that are easy to remember. So 3, 4, 5 is great. And I think it'll just take some practice. For me, I'm in an organization that's not very framework, like we're not a framework model centric type organization. So it's always thinking about, as an OD person, how do I sort of introduce some of these frameworks or ideas without telling them we're doing a framework, right? And so it helps me kind of organize and maybe help them facilitate a conversation that they're already trying to have, but with more structure. So we might be jumping from concerns to clarification to change all over the place, but just kind of, it tightens it up a little bit and gives it more structure. So I really like that. And I'm going to reflect on that. And then just the experience itself. I enjoyed the experience. I think for me, I appreciated, you were asking us, what needs clarification? What are the concerns? What we want to change? We want to step through it. I'm thinking about, the different types of people you might have in a room as you go through this alignment exercise. And I know in my environment, like, we've got people that want to make decisions yesterday and let's get on with it already. And then others that need more time to process and so forth. So I could sort of see the sort of less question, just an observation, right? It's just like, how do you bring everybody along, but also help people that, want to be moved on already to the next thing, go through the process. Yeah.
Well, I want to say one thing we have when you do our alignment practitioner training, we talk about stealth alignment. How do you sneak it in where people don't know what's happening and they just go, oh, whoa, look what's happened.
Stealth. I like that word. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we actually had a person who works with a lot of boards, and she had brought up to the board, like, oh, I have this, Art of Alignment book, wants to use this process. And they're like, no, bleh. So then she just started doing it. And then after 3 or 4 decisions were made, they were like, well, this is working pretty good. What is this? And she goes, it's that thing I was mentioning, the alignment.
Yeah.
And they're, let's get the book, so they kind of walked in that way. You can do like a little, book club or something. People read it, and then they talk about it and it'll sneak in. Like, one of the things that you can do too is if you just start scribing and have the C's there, and you can put things in out of order, that's a clarification. you know, and then I've also, once you teach people, you'll even ask them, well, what C is that? You know, no, that's a change. Okay, well, let's perk that. We'll do it later. And they start to recognize that when information flows in this way, it is so much easier to make a reproposal, especially if somebody's writing things down. This is absolutely key, you know, and yeah, and people want those notes. They actually are useful to keep and as for things, especially somebody maybe wasn't there in the meeting when something was discussed, you know, so they start to appreciate it. And the other thing I want to say is that there is something that I didn't realize until after I started doing multiple alignments was that happens if you have to listen to this in order. So for example, if we start with clarifications, then I'm not like having an issue with something I misunderstood. So that's helpful. If then we go to compliments, if people have to listen to what other people like about something, then even if they don't like something, if they go, okay, well, you can like it and I can hate it. We don't have to be against each other, agreeing which is wrong and which is right. We don't have to be debating that. You can bring up what you love about it. Great, I heard that. I can bring up my concern. You heard that. And there's something about hearing it in that order that causes people who are polarized to start to think like each other. It's like it forces them into the dialectical point of view. And so I have seen very, very contentious groups agree on things that they normally would never even be able to talk about because they did it in this order. So I don't know if you all have any contentious, you know, things to do. I actually had a contentious situation where I was working with a Navajo Nation and nuclear contamination on Navajo tribal land. So federal agents trying to figure out what to do about the nuclear contamination. This was where they had done mining, the uranium had got down the water table, et cetera, could get in the water table. So it was a very contentious situation. And the Navajo, it's their land. They're actually sovereign, not U.S. government is not sovereign on that land. So it was, I just want to just reinforce that you should try it if you have that kind of contentious situation to see if you can get people, you know, to play. But some organizations are just super organic and they're never going to want to do it in a logical order. And you can maybe surf along with them and just reorganize it in your own mind, you know, to help yourself. That's fine.
Yeah, that thing that Patty's talking about was actually my first experience with alignment. I was there at that session, and it was absolutely magical. I was like, what just happened here? These people really talk about this and come to you know, a really strong solution and alignment with one another.
Yeah, it was very interesting. So any questions, like any other misgivings? Like I'm happy to hear about misgivings. You know, again, we want to create a safe space. I want you to all maybe think for a second about a project you have where alignment could or might not be useful. I'm happy to give a tip or two, and then we'll migrate off. I know we got to close here, but
yeah, I know Chris has got his close stuff. So
yeah, any one last question? I'm happy to answer that, and then we'll close. I think we're good. Everybody's probably going to move on. All right. So then, Chris, I'll let you out. Laura, I don't know if you might be able to pop into the thing, maybe the link for the Shuva talk, the TEDx.
And then also, the toolkit.
Yeah. So we have a free alignment toolkit that you can go and download alignment tools that we've created. So is that?
I'm pulling it right now. Sorry, I didn't have it ready.
So we're going to drop in 2 links. One is the alignment toolkit, you know, that has an executive summary. It has like a 1-page cheat sheet you can use. I'm not sure what else we have in it, but and then also if you could pop in a link for the Shuva talk. And then a last link. I don't know if any of you all are interested in exploring more about alignment or the trainings that we have. We basically start with an intro to alignment training that everybody goes through, but then you can become, if you like that, then you can go on to become a certified alignment practitioner, which gives you a license to use all of our tools, including our LMS system with your clients. We know a lot of you can use tools without having to have those things, but it's kind of helpful. And you're also in a community of other alignment practitioners that are developing this as part of their practice. So with that, Chris, I'll switch over to you. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Amazing. Thank you. And just want to say huge thank you to Patty and Laura for joining us today, for spending this time with us and really educating the network on something I feel that's really genuinely helpful in our practice. So major thanks there. Just a last few slides. I just pull this up here, because there are a lot of exciting things going on within OHODN. And let me turn the slide. The first one doesn't have a slide. It's really just an update on our OD network strategy. We do have a draft floating around. It still needs some work. Actually hoping to use Patty's process as we get a little bit further along in this process with the strategy, but keep an eye out for that over the next few months. And thank you to everyone who was actively involved in that process. Also, for those who don't know, or we do have our subcommittees, they're active. Leadership development met over the summer. DEI took a break, but they're back. Strategic change is meeting, and we're actually focused on the OD strategy right now. I did want to pull your attention to the new group highlighted in light blue on coaching. So Kathy has joined us recently in the network, looking to establish a coaching subcommittee. So those who are interested, please do snag her email, message her, and we can get that up and running as well. Kathy, did you just want to briefly introduce yourself? I think I just saw you on the call.
Sure. Yep. So hi, everyone. So I'm at Grand River Hospital in Kitchener, and I'm a PCC certified coach. So I'm actually an instructor through the Adler program, and I do mentor coaching with people. So some of the things that I've brought to Grand River is just trying to build out our coaching community and our skills. So I was saying to Chris, like, we've got lots of really good information that we're using internally that we'd be happy to share. So if people are interested in just like, you know, how to build their coaching skills, what do we even mean by that? If you haven't got coaching yet in your hospitals, be happy to connect with you. And what I'm really hoping for is a community of us that would be interested in learning together and really kind of like, you know, what we do. We had one this morning. We talk about a topic and then we just share and learn from each other, which has been really, really helpful. And it's all ICF based from the International Coaching Federation. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Kathy. And just very last slide here, like we usually do, satisfaction survey, please do fill it out. As you know, we use everything we hear from you to inform our next session. So we're going to drop that into chat very soon. And once you are done, feel free to enjoy the rest of your day.
Chris, it's already in the chat. I can drop it again, though. I just dropped it a little bit earlier, just in case people needed to drop off, but here it is again.
Not to worry. Great. So thank you, everyone. If you have to run, have a great rest of your day, fantastic weekend, and we'll all talk very soon.
Thanks very much, everybody. Great session. Thank you,
Bye.
Patty, Laura.
Okay.
Nice to see you again, Gail. In here.
Well, I just want to say thanks, but I'm going to drop to go pick up my kiddo from school.
All right.
Bye. This was super fun. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining.
Okay, I appreciate so much having the opportunity. I'll probably need to go to your next meeting, but I don't know if you have any questions or comments. I'm happy to take it.
Oh, Gail, you're muted.
I'm not sure who Linda is. Who's Linda?
Let me remove. I think she stepped away from her computer. Just put her in the waiting room.
Okay. So I thought the session went really well.